Okay, we are live. Welcome, Baniti, to my channel.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for taking the time and coming on here and talking with me. Like, I really appreciate people's time, especially someone like you. I have to say, I had your brother Ravana on my show, my channel last year.
Okay.
We had a great time.
Nice.
And I really, really like how you guys approach shit. Like, you're just real. And
Right.
yeah, I respect you guys. You know, I see how you come across and how you approach things, and you're no shit, just get straight to the point, and you're
Correct.
passionate. You know, and I
Correct.
think that's key. So yeah, I wrote a bunch of questions down, but we can
That's
just
fine.
take it there, and then my viewers will pop in and we'll go through there and see what kind of questions that they have and stuff like that.
That's fine.
Yeah. So first, I don't know, too many people know who you are on my channel. Why don't you just give us a little brief intro of who you are, what you do, and where they can find you and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, like just to comment on something you said in the opening as far as approach, you know, everybody, there's what we have to understand is not one particular approach to this path. And that's the beauty of it. You know, everybody has a method and everybody does things that work for them. The only thing that's important, as long as what you're doing, you get results. That's important because not everybody's going to be in 100% in agreement with my methods, your methods. But that is my approach. I don't, you know, excuse my language. Sometimes I use strong language. I don't beat around the bush. No bullshit. It's effective. It works for me. But as far as myself, like everybody else, majority of us, I didn't just come onto this path, right? We all went through things prior. So, you know, I'm born and raised in New York. I currently now reside in South Florida. Moved down here about 7, 8 years ago. Came up, born and raised Catholic. Went to Catholic school for 8 years. I just give you the quick rundown. Went to public high school. Really started searching spiritually probably when I was about 13. I'd started to look at things different. So I went through a bunch of things before I got to the occult left-hand path. I flirted with Islam as a young teenager in my very early 20s, Sufism. Then got heavily interested in, you know, Egyptian studies. Ancient Egypt always fascinated me. Ancient Samaria, I started to really dabble in that for a while. Even going back when I was in school, the 5% Nation, the Nation of Gods and Earths, that was one of my first conscious / spiritual movements that I belonged to back in the day. Was part of the Nuwapian movement for several years. Left all that, and then I really started to go on an esoterical journey. I am a master Mason. I've gone through the Shrine, 32nd degree Mason. I've gone through the OTO, Order Templi Orientis, if you're familiar with that, Crowley, Thelema. I've also am a 12th degree Rosicrucian. Took about 7, 8 years to get through that. But having said that, Temple of Set, I was a member of the Temple of Set for 3 years and resigned due to a bunch of political stuff, but I was raised as an adept in the Temple of Set. I'm currently a high priest in the Temple of the Ascendant Flame, which is probably my core studies, but it doesn't limit me to just that. I say all that to say, even going through the stuff prior to I just always felt like there was more. And even back in the 90s, early 90s, when I wasn't quote unquote on the occult, I was dabbling with it on the side, candle magic, things of that nature. And then plus some traditional paths like being initiated in Ifa and Palo. That was heavy in my influence in the very 90s, early 2000s. But having said that, going through all that, I always felt like there was something missing. And until I got to the occult left-hand path, I realized that spiritual sovereignty, that spiritual freedom was missing. I made a pledge to myself, no more will I follow anything or anybody. No more will I be a part of any groups that impose restrictions and do's and don'ts. And what the left-hand path of the occult has done, it has filled in the blanks that I was looking for years ago. So that's the quick story of kind of how I got, this is kind of how I got here. So I just ran down the quick version.
Journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's awesome. I've never been part of any groups.
And that's probably a good thing. It's
Yeah.
probably a good thing.
As soon as just like you said, as soon as people start gatekeeping, I'm out of this shit. This is ain't no. I notice a lot of people, once they get into groups, they get this power hungry. I don't know what the fuck it is. They start to feel power.
It's what you said. Like, for an example, and it's not to single out, but I'm just going to call for what it is. Like when I was in the Temple of Set, one thing that attracted me, and I hadn't been, like, even though I'm still, as far as Masonry, my membership is active, but I'm not really active. I don't go as much as I used to. Same thing with the Rosicrucian Lodge. My membership is active, and I'll go occasionally. But I saw everything you're saying, that politics, the power structure. But I use the Temple of Set for an example. It promotes, like, they want you to come in to enhance your perspective on the left-hand path. But as soon as you're not in alignment and in agreement with majority of their methodologies, then all the politics start. So without getting into all that, feeding off of that negativity, say it again.
There's a lot of people that go to Temple Set and end up leaving.
Yeah.
So like, whatever.
Yeah. It's what you said, though. It's a lot of politics, gatekeeping. I want to be in charge. I want to be the man. I want to be the woman. I want to be this and that. And it's just, I'm done with that. I gave up that mental slavery years ago. So I refuse to be a part of any of that stuff moving forward.
Yeah, because they start to make it into a religion in a way,
It is.
They want to. Yeah, but I mean, it's good to learn all. I mean, I'm sure you learn so much.
Oh, sure. Don't get me wrong. I mean, people like Don Webb puts out great information, great books. I had little differences of opinion with Michael Aquino, who's passed away. People don't know.
Was that one that was the first person that's
found? Yeah, that broke off from the Church of Satan and was inspired. Which the problem I had. Yeah, well, that sounded eerily similar to Crowley, how he described what happened to him, and I had questions about that, and I got attacked for it because I had my own opinion on it. Because how Crowley described his experience of how Alois, his guardian angel, appeared to him, it was very eerie similar how Aquino described Set appeared to him, and then he received a book called The Coming Forth by Night. Crowley received, the Book of the Law. It's just, I just found it like there's some influence there, because it's like you could wake up tomorrow and say, the Prince of Darkness, I had a revelation. The Prince of Darkness said, call him this, and we need to branch off, and everybody needs to do this. That's where the religion and the following part comes in, and that's where I had a problem. So it kind of shifted to that, because I'm going to ask questions. I don't give a shit who you are. I have no problem asking a question, and I feel if you get offended by a question, and I'll ask it respectfully, if you stand firm on what your information is, you shouldn't have a problem with anybody asking you a question.
Well, and see, the thing is, and this is what I was going to ask you too, it kind of aligns with my question.
Sure.
But if somebody gets this amazing revelation, well, you know what? Because you can't prove it, right, unless everybody, at least 4 or 5 people, have the same experience that can back it up. You're going one person's influencing and ready to set up a structure system, because honestly, can't fucking prove that shit. I don't give a shit.
Well, what you're saying is 100% correct, because what people have to understand on this path or not, if you're on some type of spiritual journey, we have to be able to differentiate between a subjective experience and an objective experience. So something like that in the example of Crowley or Aquino, that's a subjective experience. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have that experience. That's not the problem I have, but the problem, you actually answered it with what you described. I tell people, do not co-sign on nobody's shit unless you have a similar experience or you can confirm it for yourself. That's all. I don't doubt people. This is why we have to be careful, because people will come on this path. I had a dream with Lilith. I saw Lilith, or this or that. That's great. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but you're not going to get me to co-sign because I didn't have that same experience. So if I just go, oh, yeah, that's great, you did, oh, awesome, this and that, and blah, 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 then we're starting religion again, and we're following people, right? Yeah. So we have to be, because a Luciferian principle is we have to be tolerant of other people's perspectives, but at the same time, we can't co-sign on them if we can't confirm them.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Because what happens is like, because I wanted to briefly break down the spirit of Luciferianism and like break, you know, wearing the deific masks and subjective
Sure.
and objective experiences. Because I mean, for me, an example, when I was 7 years old, I saw Lucifer. I didn't know what Lucifer was, but I literally saw him. So that set me on the journey to find out what did I see, because I've never seen these images before. So that was objective, but I couldn't prove it. And the problem is with some people, when they come in this path, they start to have these dreams and experiences, but there is huge difference when you have a real experience with an entity. It's a very different experience than, and I think that comes with time and experience of spirituality. And if you kind of allow someone to only feed off that, they can become delusional, and that's where that balance and sanity comes in, because your dreams are symbols, but there is that objective experience that, you know, the paranormal, you know. So I thought I'd break it down because you're pretty good at this. Let's talk about because I feel like you can't make a Luciferian. Like, you know, Michael W. Ford really describes it. He's like, it's perfect. I was always adversarial. I can never follow. Like, do you agree with that, right? Like, do you?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead. We'll go into your question.
Objective. Well, I guess we kind of did. I mean,
well, to touch on that, I think the most successful people are people that have that harmony between their subjective consciousness and their objective consciousness. Because what the problem is, I'm not just going to say on the left-hand path and the occult, but in spiritual paths of higher consciousness, whatever that means. That could be Kemetic studies, that could be Buddhism, paths of enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. I think what tends to happen is people can get so engrossed in the spiritual world where everything is subjective, and they lose sight of everyday reality. Because the bottom line is this: how I show people, and I suggest to people to stay grounded. And you mentioned something, being in a sound mind and sound body is something I'm big on. I don't just throw people into working with dark, intense stuff if they got personal stuff they need to work on, because you're actually doing them a disservice. If you throw them into something hardcore and they're dealing with mental and emotional issues and blockages, they could be dealing with psychological trauma from childhood. It could be sexual abuse, verbal, physical abuse. If you're not dealing with that first, you're doing that person damage. But what some people tend to do, they get on these spiritual paths and everything is subjective. Everything is spiritual. And it's like an escapism from their everyday life's reality. That's where like you described earlier, the craziness comes in, right? Because they think, regardless of all the crap I'm dealing with here, regardless of how shitty my life is, there's some great spiritual abode or some great something great waiting for me out there. And that's dangerous, because you'll find part of what we do on this path. There is a part of this path that is objective, and it's called the path of indulgence, right? To indulge in life, enjoy life, but do it responsibly. I don't care if that's, personal desires, goals, accomplishments. You'll know the well-rounded person that's successful on this path. There's a good harmony and balance between success in their everyday mundane personal life and then their spiritual studies. To me, that's how I gauge results, not to be judgmental, because you're going to find people that are very intelligent. They have tons of book knowledge. They can regurgitate shit and they can tell you all this deep shit. But you look at them and they're a hot mess, and on all levels. And there's a disconnect there to me. Like, partner, you're not applying what you're studying.
But
so
see, the too is I see a lot of people, the people who aren't that experienced, look at these people like, oh my God, they know so much, and they follow in their shit. And it's like, look at how they're living. Look at, like, but that comes with experience, because
correct.
Absolutely right. If I watch, let's say I'm watching somebody and I see they preach or speak whatever they want to speak, but then their behavior is social media is totally different than what they're. Then you're like, okay, you know what? You gotta.
Exactly.
But
yeah, definitely.
did something. I forget.
That's all right. But the other thing you said too, being in a sound mind and a sound body, that's I can't tell you how that I can stress that a million times and never get tired of saying it because, and I'm sure you've dealt with this doing what you do. People come to you with all types of crazy shit. They think this is a fix, snap your finger and you're going to fix everything in one shot. They don't realize that this is work. And I want to put that out there for everybody to know. This doesn't happen overnight. I don't want anybody to come on this path and think, oh, I'm on the left-hand path in the occult and everything is just going to be fixed at the blink of an eye and the snap of my fingers. I tell you what, at first, it becomes very challenging and it's a lot harder because there's more work. You realize all the fucked up shit you've been doing and you start to see everything come to the surface that needs to be addressed. Yeah. And then you go, oh shit, this is not what I signed up for, because I don't want nobody to come on this path with the illusion that it's not work. But I can tell you this, if you stay the course and you're consistent at what you do, I can tell you the rewards are fantastic as you start to take the journey. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Anybody that tells you it is full of shit. Because I know there's people out there, they think they're hot shit. It's always the ones that they talk a good game. Oh, everything comes easy. I'm this and that. But again, you look at their example, not to be judgmental, but you look at everything's a hot mess. It's like, what are you talking about? So.
Yeah. Well, like for me, through my journey, because I was stripped from my identity when I was young and I had so many questions because I saw spirits and I was raised as a Christian and I questioned the Bible and it broke me. And through that, I went through addiction. I started to have so much trauma. And it wasn't until I was nothing. My chaos was so crazy that I was suicidal. And I said, I'm not I'm an empty shell of a human being. And that's when the light of Lucifer came. And I took that knowledge instead of pushing it away. And I learned to my chaos. And I had to look at all of the disgusting shit I put myself through because of my choices and take that responsibility and face myself. And, that's working the dark side, the shadow tree is going through your subconscious, breaking that shit down, understanding why you did this stuff, and having that harmony. And it is fucking work. And there's crying and there's anger and the entities will fucking bring that shit up.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's when people don't understand. My life's going crazy. Well, your life's going crazy because you don't know how to react. It's learning back to decisions that's we're learning. Yeah, they're teaching us how to be the elite. The wise, the powerful have to learn how to react to certain situations.
That's correct.
And yeah.
No, it's you're dead on. It's got to be. See, the first thing is to a degree. It's normal as a human being. You need to be responsible, right? So I don't say it in that regards, right? You should be responsible. Nobody should have to tell you that. But in a lot of other paths, you don't get that responsibility because you're always dictated to and told what to do. Where it becomes hard is because now everything like you just described, you can't blame nobody anymore. Like your successes, take credit for that, give yourself the thumbs up. That's the easy part. But I think what happens is where people struggle, I'm talking about more so newer people when they first come on this path of liberation and sovereignty, as I call it, a path of self-mastery, apotheosis, whatever term makes you happy. It's hard to take and acknowledge when you fuck up and make mistakes. And you got stuff you got to work on. See, that's something we were always, like you say, through religion, as you talked a little bit about how that was part of, an issue you had to overcome because it leaves a scar and psychological effect. See, back then, when you're not in that frame of mind because you always had something external to blame. There was always some outside force that you were always at the mercy to. It's not like that now. Now you come on this. It's like I tell people the thing, because the karma thing comes up all the time. All karma is cause and effect. It's choices and the decisions you make. It's that simple. Don't spook it out, right? You make a decision, there's going to be an effect of the decision you make. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So there's nobody to blame. You can't point fingers anymore. And that's tough for some people to overcome.
Yeah. Well, this is what I think anybody who's getting, and you talked about this in your videos too, but everyone,
Yes.
they need to know the fundamentals of some shit, you guys.
That's right. That's right.
This and understand how things work,
Right.
And that is very, and it's a good relief for beginners to understand certain stuff.
It is. It is. And I'm glad you put that up there, because when people email me over the years, what's some good books to start out with, I always recommend that, because a lot of people who study Kemetic studies, ancient Egyptian teachings, there's always the emphasis on the laws of Ma'at, right? And rightfully so to a degree. But the problem is you really can't understand the laws of Ma'at if you don't understand the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. Why do I say that? Because the laws of Ma'at are the laws that govern your objective consciousness. That's the laws that govern your subjective consciousness. And if you really, like you said, the foundation of a lot of those principles really is how, when you're working magic on your subjective realm, if you really understand the doctrine of vibration, the doctrine of rhythm, polarity, but obviously the first one, which is always critical and key, all is mental is all, the universe is mental. And people always get stumped on that. And it's real quick, not to get too long-winded with that, but I have to address this, because people will go, I'm confused. If everything is mental, why do I have these external experiences? And they get confused. It's not saying that you don't have, like people say, I did a ritual and I saw a vision of a deity, whatever you were working with, or I did an ancestral ritual and I saw my ancestors. And I said, yes, you did have that experience. You did see what you experienced. But guess where it still had its point of origin? It still began in your mind. They get confused with that, because they think when that's being said, they think there's nothing external that you experience on this path. That's not true. That's not what it means. It means it all starts in your subjective consciousness, because anything that you bring in objectively or into your physical realm, you must formulate it first on the mental. There's nothing. So even I always tell a person, for an example, they say, I did a ritual with Set, right? And they'll go, I saw Set, and they describe Set a certain way. I said, so let me ask you a question. When you saw Set a certain way, where do you think those images came from? If you really go back, everything that we study, that we absorb, not just on this path, and this also ties into the importance of shadow work, but everything that we experience, our subconscious mind stores it like a computer. So every image you lay your eye on, if you've seen image and you start reading about Set, you start studying books about Set, it's no different how they did it to us as children in religion. They stamped those images in our heads of the prophets, of Jesus, of Mary, and that gets stamped in your head. 9 out of 10 times, if you have a spiritual experience and ritual, your subconscious mind is going to access the data that you stored there of how you saw that spirit or deity, right? For the most part. I'm not talking about, sometimes it could be just a straight unique experience right out the box. But
also just to touch on that, the spirit itself will access your subconscious mind and pick things apart, so you can understand that spirit. Because there's things that, like, I'm working with Nephthys right now, and I had no clue. Really, it's only been a little bit. I'm obsessed with this spirit. Okay, she is most. I had no clue she was going to be like this, and she's communicating with me with hieroglyph. I had to wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, did I just see a hieroglyph? Okay, what the fuck is that? And I didn't know. So the spirits will connect with you using the data and the frequency you can do, because I don't know. I try not to do too much research on spirits, because just like you said, I want them to be authentically with me as possible. I try to make it but I know what you're saying, that people have to understand that, and that's where of the subconscious mind is. It's like brains are computers, guys. Just like on a computer, put in information. The same shit is our brain, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you bring up something good. That's why I tell people over the years, like when we do work down and when we come together as a group, and sometimes people will show up trying to, like, we'll do stuff and we'll say, you know, when we're getting prepared doing preparations, there'll always be that one or two trying to ask a million questions, like, what's this about? What should I experience? And I'm like, that you're ruining it by trying to dictate the experience, because true ritual is not a true ritual if you're trying to have preconceived notions and already dictate the outcome before you go into the work. That's a waste of time, because all you have to trust in yourself, right? You should always go into ritual work with a clear and open mind. You shouldn't ever go in, because what can happen is too much reading into it, and that's the problem. People don't understand. They don't know how to separate the books and the information and the stuff that they read. And they got to realize, when you get in that ritual room or the chamber room or the altar room, you have to realize all that stuff doesn't exist no more. It's irrelevant. The books are just tools and roadmaps to help and assist you lay out your path to self-mastery. You can't bring the book and the information with you as it is exactly in the room, because the book is just giving you a generalization of information, but your experience needs to be unique. And it's only going to be unique and personal. And like you said, as you described with Nephthys, that's when you'll be open up to the spirit and get very unique messages, revelations, experiences, whatever you want to call it, because you went into it not trying to like people will go in, they have, like, you use Kali for an example. I'll use a popular deity today. You know how I know it's bullshit? Because everybody says similar bullshit with Kali. And I can tell you, when it's Kali and Lilith, there's a lot of easy bullshit you can cipher through, because everybody says the same regurgitated shit. I don't ever hear anybody talking about the hardships, the pain that they went through, how the spirit took them to their emotional and psychological traumas, things of that nature. Everybody talks about with Lilith, the sex stuff, and that's cool and everything, and it's there. I get it. But my thing is, I don't hear the hardcore work, because Lilith
fuck you up
big time.
Like these dark spirits. I could for love. I'll never do that again. I'll tell you that. I never do that again. You know, but she's the type of person. She's the entity that's going to bring chaos in your fucking life.
But why? But she brings the chaos. She destroys so she can rebuild. That's her concept is everything must be destroyed so it can be built back up correctly. So that's the other thing that always has to be addressed in this path, because some people, not per se us and people like us that might have the knowledge and the experience, there are other people who might be inquisitive, new, and they get scared away because sometimes some people promote it as gloom and doom and death and destruction. Now that exists, it's real. But I want to make it clear, but that's done because that has to be done in order for you to remanifest and become what you're destined to be. All the old ways that are not productive for you must be destroyed. And if you're not willing to do that, definitely don't fuck with Lilith. No. If you're not willing to do that, don't fuck with Lilith, because don't get caught up in all that materialistic shit and sexual desires and all that. And that element exists. But there's a lot of fluffy shit out there now, like Lilith, the mother goddess. And, you know, they do this with Lilith. They do this with Kali. You get deceived with that shit. You got to be careful. Got to be careful.
That too. And it's like she has many aspects, but it's very likely her mother aspect. I never experienced her mother aspect until like after, you know? Right.
But speaking of that, remember, there's not just one aspect of any of these spirits. No. Like Lilith, you have a vampiric manifestation of Lilith. You do have a stern motherly aspect of Lilith. There's a very sexual aspect of Lilith. There's an aspect of Lilith. When it talks about lust with Lilith, people get confused because they always think lust refers to sex. No, there's a lust for knowledge. The most powerful aspect of Lilith, she reaches out to those who really lust for knowledge and knowing themselves. That's the most powerful lust that you can send to that spirit. And you'll find those who work with her in that regards get a lot of spiritual doors opened on a multitude of levels, because we're programmed on a lot of levels, because we hear the word lust and automatically our mind goes to sexual energy, which is a small part of it. But there can be a lust for knowledge. There can be lust for a banana split. There can be lust to go watch a basketball game, because look up the word. You understand what I'm saying? There's that aspect of Lilith you'll find. That's the one that pulls you through the Citra Aqua, the other side. That's the one you encounter in the clip pop. And that's the hardest aspect of Lilith to connect with, because she doesn't reach out just to anybody. Yeah. It takes a while to make that connection. So when you mention deific mass, just like in other traditional systems, like in Ifa, you have with the Orishi, there's multiple paths of the Orishi. There's not just one aspect of Shango. There's not just one aspect of Oshun, et cetera, et cetera. They have different paths because each one of those paths represents an ashe or an aspect of their energy and their consciousness, right? Like with Oshun, everybody always talks about the materialistic things of Oshun. That's the one in Ifa that rules my head. There's also a sorceress aspect of Oshun. She's a witch. She's a magician. She's very knowledgeable. It's an elder form of her. And she's depicted in the traditions of sitting down by the riverside, concocting sorcery and magical potions, things of that nature. I bring that up because that's an aspect of Oshun nobody ever talks about. It's always the mother goddess and sexuality and all that. And again, I'm not saying that doesn't exist. It does. Yeah. But I'm saying it's not the only thing. That's all I'm saying.
That's where you get like when people come to me and they ask me questions with certain spirits, I always tell them, like, work with the spirit for 6 months. Like, if you're just beginning this, don't just follow on the spirit one time. Like, get to know this energy so it can really, really work for you. Because one, work for you, you know, and that's where you get the intimate relationships with these ancient forces, you know.
I'm glad you said that, because that ties into something else I'm big on: consistency. It's funny. People will do something once or twice. You know how many people, and I'm sure you get this too. I'm not telling you nothing you didn't know. I'm sure there's people out here listening get this too. It's funny how people call, yeah, I'm doing this and I'm not getting any results. And then you ask them, well, what is it you're doing? And they did one or two things. And you're like, that's what I'm saying. I don't want nobody. And I know there's other people out there that promote it. And I can only share with you my experience, my successes, and what works for me. Is that going to work for everybody listening? Absolutely not. Are there going to be some things that I say and you say that people can resonate with and connect? Most definitely. What I am saying is I don't want nobody to be misled and think, like you said, you can't do something once or twice. No. Sometimes people don't look at not getting results as a confirmation that the spirit is trying to tell you you need to do more work on it, because there's more work to be done. So you can look at that two ways. But if you just did something once or twice and you're like, oh, it's not working, it's not. You're not working. You're literally not working. That's the problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Hello, AK Morningstar. Everybody's just commenting. If you guys have any questions for Baniti, feel free to ask. His channel's pretty dope. You guys have to go to Primordial Chaos, and I mean, he has so much content on there and goes into like hours of talking. The man knows how to talk.
Yeah, sometimes I could get talking. I gotta stop myself. It can be like that.
I want to talk about our passion. Like, I think what makes the adversarial path is we're very passionate people, and correct. I think you know, it can go either way for you, but it's about like you could I got to the point of my spirituality where it's like I can sit there and I want to know so much. My whole life I wanted to know things.
Sure.
I got everything I needed to know, and it's like I had to make a decision. Do I still continue to dig this rabbit hole and keep going further, or do I just do the ritual, feel like I'm at the point where I'm in awe with the fact that I get to experience an ancient force and see how this force relates to me? I'm not really more into like getting material stuff because it just flows now. Everything is
exactly.
So like I don't need to do that. I'm more of just the experience of that. I lost my train of thought, but oh crap! What was I just saying?
You were talking about like when you're doing your ritual, you kind of flow with it. You don't, you don't.
Oh, so people, you know, they want to know so much, and they lose track of that you want to be in this destructive forces, and you're with all these destructive things, but you also have to love life. If you don't love the beaches, if you don't love the forest,
That's right.
you not only be chaos. Like people,
Right.
oh, I'm all adversarial. No, no, no.
I know, and
But
that's I know.
then
You're right.
why here on Earth? Because you're
Right.
here on Earth to experience the beauty and the creation of it.
Well, let me add something to that, because really, in essence, what this path is about, and this is why I love when you get into Egyptian Heka and the teachings
Love
of
it.
black magic through the work of ancient Egypt. You look at that concept of Set Heru, right? Set and Heru, or even if you're familiar with some of the teachings, it's actually Charles Pace, not actually Michael W. Ford. Like some of the stuff he put in the Necromanian book, that's Charles Pace's work.
Yeah.
Set the Fury of Egypt, some of Asenath Mason's and the Temple of Ascended Flames work. They have it right on point when they talk about the triad of light and darkness, right? When you look at those two concepts, and you look at the triad of darkness, which is Set, and you look at Ampu or Anubis and Sekhmet, and then you look at the triad of light, you have Aset, which some know as Isis, and then you have Osir or Osiris, and Heru and Horus. What those teachings teach you, and one thing, and that's one of the paths that I really have a fondness for. It shows you how a dark magician, a black adept, a student on this path's goal is to find the right harmony of light and darkness. That's what it represents, right? In Don Webb and Judith Page's book, Set the Outsider, he breaks it down on a level that's very how any spiritual person in their ritual practices can apply that to themselves. He says Set represents the red blood cells, chaos, rebellion, which really is non-conformity, the higher self, right? Heru represents conformity, institutionalism, the lower or the weaker self. What the Set Heru thing is trying to show you, the battle that we go through, like when you see the stories of the battles between Set and Heru, that represents the struggle that we deal with every day within. It's us, our higher self, fighting always against that weaker self that gets us into the heap of shit we get into all that time. So people have gotten it twisted over the years. They always present that story as something religious in the lesser mysteries of Egypt, and it's always presented where Set is this devil religious character, and Horus or Heru is this savior character. I know all correlations with Jesus, this and that, which, okay. But the bigger picture here is trying to show you there's always that internal war we are fighting every day with the higher and the weaker self. That could be addictions, right? That could be mental indoctrination. That could be abuse, psychological traumas, right? We fight it every day. And as I've been saying for years, you start that battle every day with simple stuff. You get up in the morning, you got to deal with, what am I going to wear today? What am I going to eat for breakfast? It starts with simple things. And then as it progresses, it starts, you see. So that really the essence of every great black magician, occultist, sorcerer, whatever you want to call yourself, is how can I successfully lay my path of self-mastery and get the right aspects of light and darkness? Because in essence, that's what Lucifer represents. One of his aspects or mask is Lucifer, the light bearer. That's what his name translates to. Why? Because he is one of the few spirits, demons, archetypes that embody light and darkness.
That's right.
And there's a reason for that. Because he's the bringer of intellect. Because as I've said many times before, one must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. The light is symbolic of the intellect and the knowledge that the individual learns and gains in the darkness. Because I even tell religious people, if you go back to the Bible, there's a confession there and nobody ever answers that's religious. It says, in the beginning, God's spirit roamed across the void of the deep, right? It says his spirit was in darkness, because then he says, let there be light. And I'm saying according to their religious theology. So the question is, if God said, let there be light, and the Bible confirms he was in the void and the darkness and the void can't be that bad the way religious people describe it.
That's right.
Because when the artificial light came, that's when the confusion kicked the fuck in. We didn't have that problem. Right? So we have to look at these things. It's about obtaining the harmony and balance of light and darkness. That's the goal. Okay?
Yeah. And that's why we program of these Judaic Christians and all these religions, they really fuck up people's minds.
Oh yeah.
being this way when it's really the intellect. It's really appreciating the creative, but understanding we live in a system that is corrupted, in every area of our system is corrupted. And
Yeah.
it's up, you know.
Well, let me, I don't want to go too far out here, but let me say something because, you got to be careful sometimes on YouTube and these
Yeah,
platforms because they're
I
getting, they're getting very filtery. Something I talked about on a recent show, and I don't want nobody to accept this. A lot of the shit that's going on in the world, these mass shootings, I keep trying to tell people there's shit going on that people have no clue. And I brought something up about this recent shooting, which is a fucking travesty for any time innocent children get killed. I want to put that out there. But I'm trying to tell people, you got to look at the bigger picture. There's a lot of forces at play. That was a sacrifice that took place. And nobody can tell me anything otherwise. There's no fucking way. Cops stand outside 40 minutes. They were there to make sure nobody went in there and disturbed that boy from shooting.
so bizarre.
Okay? Okay? And then now you're finding out the sergeant or the sheriff showed up at the scene without a radio. Then they lied to us and said, oh, they engaged him before he went in. They had a shootout with him, then he went in, which means that's even more fucking crazy. And then they realized we can't say that because that's not going to make sense and cover our other lies. Then it was, no, he entered unobstructed through a door a teacher left open. Look, long story short, we have to understand if we're on this path, there are people who go to the far right bizarre, and I don't condone that. None of us should ever harm any children for any reason. It doesn't justify it. None of us should ever harm any animals if there's not justification for it and it's not done correctly, right? Because animal sacrifice, sometimes in animal rights, is part of some traditional and spiritual systems, but it's done a certain way. But what I'm saying is, in regards to that, when you talk about religion and programming, all this shit that they're doing now from COVID, and I want to get into that, be careful saying that, because the C word on YouTube.
Disclaimer, only for entertainment.
Right. All of these things, they're shifting the whole paradigm on us to do a global economic and spiritual reset. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to have your own thoughts. They want to control every aspect of your life, from the food you eat every day, from what you buy. This is why you see things, everything is going to, you see this. Think about after the pandemic, curbside service, order on the internet. It's to the point you're not even gonna have to leave your fucking bed, where you can't even, you don't even have to think for yourself no more.
Well, think about here in Toronto, okay, we don't have that many gun problems, but our mayor just, or our government just made handguns illegal, and you have to. Why? We don't have gun problems here. Why? Because they know in the future, if they ever come after us, we ain't got nothing to protect ourselves with.
Well, that's true. Look, I'm all for the constitutional right. You should have a right to bear arms. I do think there should be some restrictions. First of all, this is how I know it's bullshit. If an 18-year-old kid who just turned 18, red flag, because if you've ever purchased a gun, your ID is looked at. Dude's going to see his birthday, and you're going to walk into a shop right after you turned 18, and you're going to buy a semi-automatic rifle, and no red flag goes off in your head. What does an 18-year-old kid need semi-automatic? So what I'm saying is, I don't think banning guns is the solution, but I do think if tougher screening process is put in. Like if I'm a gun shop owner and that kid would have walked in, red flag. That's a red flag. So I think the problem is, what do we do in a situation like that without violating constitutional rights, which is a challenge, but remember, the Constitution and rights can be amended. So they're full of shit. What I'm trying to say is they're allowing these things to happen for a reason. Don't get caught up in the emotions. Don't get caught up in the politics, because you'll get confused. Because then there's going to be these arguments and debate, the non-gun people against the gun people. And that's what they want. That's the distraction. That's what they want. But us, and I always say, being on this path, you must be a critical thinker, and you must be proactive and not reactive. The problem with a lot of people, through the media, through the internet, through the news, and all these other forms and platforms, how they spoon feed you and control your mind, it's to control your emotions. Now, I'm going to go back to my time frame. I'm going to be 51 years old on Friday, right? So when you go back to an era prior to the internet, right? When I was growing up as a kid and a teenager, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, we didn't have cell phones. And guess what? The only time you were exposed to news was whether you were listening to it on the radio or the TV.
Yeah.
But let me tell you how that's changed now. Now, from the very moment you wake up, this right here is a blessing and a curse.
I know.
Because this right here is everybody's virtual reality right now. They're programmed by this to the point they got a disease now. I can't remember the name of the phobia if you leave your house without it. They have a term for it. But literally, that's how addicted people have become to this shit. It's a blessing because you had, like, we're doing what we're doing now. You could reach a lot of people, get a lot of information out there. But unfortunately, people cyberbullying. I never thought as a kid I would ever hear of such a thing. You have people who can't survive without this. I grew up in an era where if you had a house phone, you were lucky. We went out, we played all day as kids. We survived without it.
I know.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying. So you're exposed to news 24/7. From the moment you wake up, you're in your car, at work, it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. And this is how they control us.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. If you didn't turn the TV on or the radio, you didn't know anything was going on.
No.
Yeah.
But see, it just has to either you evolve and we have to get smarter, or we die out. So there's no other way, we're either gonna, because I was watching a documentary on AI, and basically he was talking about the cell phones are very smart AIs and they watch everything that we do. We have you have Alexa that speaks to you sometimes, and you got people coming through these weird things, watching your kids, like these things. So it's obviously going to get really, really bad for worse. These are just parts of what's going to happen, because in the last 50 years, shit's gone fucking crazy with the technology.
Big time. But that's the beauty of this path. It opens up doors in your psyche to see things for what they really are. Look, I can tell you many times, and this is subjective, it's personal, and I'm not trying to get anybody to co-sign on it, but I can tell you many times where I've gone into ritual work, like for an example with Samael. And when you want to understand the mysteries of life and death, he shows you what I've learned from Samael is how beautiful this world is and how horrific it is at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because Samael teaches you experiencing those influx of emotions, and you kind of weep for humans sometimes, because it's crazy how we can be at one moment compassionate, caring, and we'll go to any length to do something to help somebody. But then at the flip of a switch, we can be just as destructive and disruptive, right? So we got to look at that two ways. That's Samael shows you those things so you can understand how you are all of those emotions. And it's about being able to facilitate them correctly, not being controlled by them. And I bring up Samael because he just popped into my head, and because it's in relationship to what we're talking about what's going on in the world, this and that. And Samael shows you the reality of life on this side and life, quote unquote, I'm using a simplistic term, life on the other side, on the void, the abyss, whatever you want to call it, the darkness. And it's a beautiful thing because, see, we have that understanding. Whereas what we're talking about here, people that are in this world completely and are easy to manipulate and control and influence and indoctrinate, they're the ones that are becoming corrupted. And it's hard to reach them. It really is. Here's the danger. This is why a lot of people are going fucking loony. They're going out of their mind, because with all of these changes going on, and there's also, when we bring in the aspect of nature is changing, right? Yeah. We see it in the weather. We see the cataclysmic events over the last 15, 20 years that will continue, unfortunately. We see as the earth is going through its changes spiritually, some people are not making that transition with it, and they're going fucking batshit crazy because they don't know how to absorb the consciousness. So I keep telling people, when you overload and you don't know how to assimilate the knowledge, like I was saying earlier, your brain is like your brain is like a computer. Yeah. Your subconscious mind's the hard drive. When you store too much shit there that you can't assimilate, like a computer, it can overload and malfunction. So can your brain if you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is we have to be conscious of all that stuff.
And that's that's when you dabble in this and you do start You will get downloads. Speaking from my experience, when I used to use heavier drugs, I would get so much download of information
Right.
that it you fucking crazy. And I know people. I do know actually people have lost their marbles because they
Oh,
number
yeah.
one won't stop using the drugs, and they believe that they're not even part of this reality. Like I think you were talking about this one thing. We are here. We are part of this realm, and
Right.
is we want to be on a subjective side. Real. This
Mhm.
is we know.
Right. But you will have those that will say, and I'm glad you said that. So we need to address something else, because there are a group of people out there who think, oh, this is just an illusion. Everything is an illusion. This world isn't real. And I say to that person, and not one has taken the challenge yet, if you believe that, right, watch how it changes quick. Stand in front of me, put your hands down, and let me bust you in your fucking face. Because if you believe this is an illusion and it's not real, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Watch how the paradigm shifts. So then, really deep down inside, you do believe there's an aspect of reality to this. And I say an aspect, right? Because there's a group of people out there in some spiritual path. Oh, life is just an illusion. I'm not real. This is just, I control the illusion. Then why the fuck you can't pay your bills?
That's
Why the
right.
fuck are you not successful in life? If it's just an illusion, it should be
Easy.
a snap. Come on,
That's
man.
right.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. It's bullshit.
That's their delusions of not accepting.
It's bullshit. Right.
You
And that's
they don't
yeah.
want to accept responsibility to be a productive member of society, and a
Right.
way giving back to society and doing your part in it. Instead, they just want to be like, it's an illusion. I'm just gonna do whatever the hell I want to do. Blah 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 blah.
And you wanna fuck them up even more. And then when people that have come at me with that over the years, I said, let me ask you a question. How you know that you're not in somebody else's dream? And then all of a sudden, the deer in the headlights. What do you mean? I say, if everything's an illusion, how you know you're not part of somebody else's illusion/reality? You don't answer it because, oh no, well I know. No, how do you know? You can't know and confirm it from here because you said this is an illusion. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying to you is, how do you know you're not in somebody else's dream or somebody else's illusion? You really don't know. People will answer. They'll try and they'll look stupid trying to do it. But my thing is, be careful when you start talking reckless like that out of the side of your mouth, because you're setting yourself up. And how you avoid that is by dealing with the now. See, there's something we deal with on this path. We're not worried about, we look at the past and things that we can confirm that we've experienced as learning lessons, experiences. We store them. We put them in our database. We don't look too far ahead because tomorrow ain't guaranteed to come. Let me show you how fucked up we are as people. We think we're automatically going to go to sleep tonight and we're going to get up in the morning, right? That's some people think we take that shit for granted. So we focus on the now, the present moment. That's the only thing that's really a reality when you strip away all of the spookism, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing right now, 8:51 Eastern Standard Time, and just that's wherever you are, is the only thing that's real. And it doesn't become the past till that time starts to contract and expand. And it doesn't go anywhere. It just contracts and expands out into the multiverses. So time will fuck you up, all of that. So we got to be careful if we talk reckless out of the side of our mouth with that. You got a group of heavies out there like that. Everything's an illusion. This world's not real. Then why the fuck are you here? Just kill yourself and go quickly where you need to go.
Yeah, why are you fucking here?
I'm sorry. I hate to sound like that, but if that's what you believe, that's my approach on it. I'm sorry. I can't go any other way with it.
But then see, I think about like the people who are stuck in the brainwashing, and like even like just like my parents or what people who are really who brainwash into the news. And then we look at human evolution. I do understand that their souls are younger and they have to incarnate and learn more. So there is hope for humanity, and I do believe that this is no. My personal belief on this whole thing is everything's already happened. We're just in this moment. I do believe it's already all happened. That's why we can pull from the past. That's why we can pull from the future. We can pull in from things because it's already fucking happened. And then when you connect things, people don't understand that we are actually getting to experience. Maybe we're trying to fix things. Maybe we're trying to do other things different way. I don't fucking know. But like, conspiracy theories, can really fuck up people's minds, and it's about coming here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just don't worry about it, man.
Conspiracy theories. But I want to back up something you said. It's kind of connected to it, but it just triggered something in me I feel like I need to share. As far as family, friends, this is something that comes up all the time. And I'm not saying this, that you're doing this, but I want to put this out there to everybody. Well, we have to understand our journey is unique for us because there's a lot of people, and I'm speaking in general, there's a lot of people who waste their time trying to convert parents, friends, trying to bash them with information. And I'm going to tell you this, stop trying to make your experience and journey theirs because it's not meant for them. And unfortunately, the reality is, like you said, if they're going to come along, there could be hope, but it has to be on their terms. You can't force nobody into accepting this information and knowledge. I see so many people cause more problems in their life. And I always tell young folks, I get so many young folks as clients sometimes, they're living in their parents' house and they're causing confusion. I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you something I was told as a kid. My mother and father simply told me, you don't like the fucking rules, you get out. Until you pay your way, you got to abide by the rules. So I don't recommend you living in your parents' house and that's your livelihood, arguing with them over religion. Because the bottom line is this, if there's, especially, do not do this to an elder like a grandparent. Because people always say, well, I want to do it. I don't want to see my grandmother or my grandfather do this. Listen, their transition will be in accordance to what they stood behind. You can do them more damage by trying. Just think if somebody's in their 80s and 90s and you're bashing everything they lived their entire life. They're at a point in their life, it's not worth it. You're actually damaging them more than you're helping them. Don't let them go out like that. Because when they get to that point and make that transition, they'll experience the truth. But we got to stop, for those that are doing that, because this comes up a lot, stop arguing and fighting with relatives and siblings to get to see shit that way. They may not agree with what you do. They may not agree with what your spiritual practices are, but I guarantee you how you will get them to respect you is by the example you set. Because if they see you're a productive person, you're successful, if you're a mother, a father, you're a great parent, you're successful in all areas of your life, they might go, I may not agree with what they do, but I can sure as hell say it's making them a productive and a good person. That's how you throw that shit right back at them.
Parents see me, they know what I'm into, but
Right.
they see how much I've changed and what kind of person I am.
And they got to respect it.
And they have to respect it because they know what I've done with my life.
And that's great.
Yeah. But and I people on this path, it's a path not for everybody. This isn't a lighthearted path. Like this is not meant for everybody. This is for the strong. Right. You have to be strong mentally in a heart to actually hide in the shadows. We have to hide in the shadows sometimes. But then people who are intuitive and see, if they want to learn, they will come to you. And that's when you can teach them. But absolutely, you're going to cause yourself so much grief if you try to persist. Correct. You can't.
No, and you
talk to your grandma.
Exactly. Don't do it. And you just said something that brings up something else. You're correct. You, like other paths, they go out and they try to recruit people or they try to enforce their methodologies on. We don't do that on this path. We're very selective. Like if you are a person who is grounded and knows what they're doing, you're very selective. Like, when somebody approaches you and they're open, we know and we're aware of who we can share information with and build with, but we're also smart enough to know I'm not going to open that can of worms. Now, if somebody gets ignorant, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you got to open a can of whoop ass on people because they just get stupid, but only when it's need. Sometimes people open that can of worms and it's not necessary. Right? So we don't go around recruiting people, trying to get people to agree with us like a lot of other paths do. They want to preach to you, lecture to you, do this, join this. And then they have the list of do's and don'ts like we were talking about in the beginning. We know, as you said, this is an adversarial path. What is adversary? It's adverse to the norm. It's just a term, right? So everything we do is going to seem nonconformist, non-traditional, and it's not going to align with society's norms. And if you're not willing to understand that, then the adversarial current / adversarial path is not for you. It's not a path for you.
And you don't want every snow on this path. I already like most of the You're already fucking crazy. I'm sorry to say. So many freaking lunatics here. Like,
It's true.
there's of us that actually take this knowledge and with respect for ourselves and with dignity and integrity use it to make change. We are not here arrogant and trying to push it down and power struck, and like
That's correct.
what I do is I try to be an example. I try to show you that I
That's
can
right.
use magic and be creative and make music and be myself. You know what it is? I
Mhm.
only want to be myself. That's
Mhm.
it. I'm fully authentic with myself, and this path has allowed me to do that because
That's
it builds
correct.
confidence in yourself. And I think
Eh,
people lack, what
Right.
it
And
is.
and something you're saying too, don't let nobody stifle your personal creativity, right? Because sometimes people will say, I'm doing this work, or I'm working with something, I'm doing rituals, I'm getting results, it's working out great. Do you think, and then they start to second guess it. And I want to say this because don't do that to yourself. I've always said this for years. First of all, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. The only right way is your way, right? The way that works for you. That's a hard pill for some people to swallow who are on more traditional paths or who are conformed to a certain level or degree. I tell anybody it's simple. They go, if somebody ever asks me to go, you think I should be doing this or that? My first question is this, if anybody knows me. Well, let me ask you a question. Is it working? Are you getting results? Yeah. So don't fucking let nobody tell you not to do it. No matter how opposition it might seem to somebody else, no matter how a person may not understand it or agree with it, that's personal. They'll get over that shit. There's things people do that they explain to me and they get results. I don't fully connect with it, but I simply my answer to them is if it's working, don't let nobody tell you you shouldn't do it. That's
And
the simple rule to live by on this path. If you're getting results, it's working. Keep doing it. If you're doing something for a long time and shit ain't happening, then it's time to look at a change. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no. I was just gonna dive in there too. See,
Go ahead.
what
Go ahead.
also that does with people is when you go to people and ask them, well, and you're doubting yourself, it gives them, if if they don't have true intention for your well-being, it gives them an opportunity to dictate what's right for
Thank you.
you, and then you start to rely
Thank you.
on them. You start to
Thank
think
you.
that they're stop believing in yourself. You have
Correct.
to intuition, and if it's working, and if it goes against their belief system, or you're not working with this spirit properly, well, you know what, prove it
That's it.
because it's working for me, and
Well,
that's
it's.
where
I'm glad you bring that up because it's funny when some of my, people will ask questions about background in Ifa and Palo, right? And as I've said before, like with my godparents, my godfather in Palo, who strictly is Palo, by the way, he doesn't mess with Ifa, Palo Mayembe. And even in Ifa, like they know where I stand now. I still have a connection with them. But the traditionalists, for an example, I use that as an example. Even religion, they'll say, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that methodology." That's because they can't accept the fact. And I say, "Yes, I can." How? You may not agree with it, but I have the results to prove it. And then they'll come with all this traditional hoopla that they've been programmed with. Oh, you can't do that with Santada. You have to do this. Oh, you can't do that with Sarabanda. It has to be done like this. That's all oral tradition. I'm not saying there's no significance to it, but what I am saying, you can't tell somebody on the flip that there's ways that can be worked with those spirits in a non-conformative, respectful way, right? So what I'm saying is, what tends to happen is first, you have to have tough skin on this path. You can't give two flying shits about what people think. And I'm saying that, not what I mean by that is people's opinions. I'm not talking about just be straight, blatant, disrespectful and fuck everybody. That's not what I mean. What I am saying is if you're a person who's concerned and worries about all the time what people think about you and their opinion of you, you're not going to last on this path.
no,
You will not last. I can tell you that right now. I gave that
I
shit up. I gave that shit up years ago. I say a million times on my videos, I don't really give two shits who love, likes, or hates me. I thank those that do love and like me. I appreciate it, but I don't lose no sleep over anybody that don't like me. I don't sit around and waste my time wondering what other people are doing because that's time wasted that I could be working on myself. And I don't hate on nobody because if I see somebody else can be successful, that means I could be successful too. I don't waste my time hating on people. I don't waste my time sitting around wondering and worrying what this person thinks or that. You need to worry about yourself. Because if you take care of self first, all right, I say this all the time, everything else starts to gradually fall into place. I'm not saying it happens overnight, but you find out a lot of us go through the shit we go through because one thing I realized coming on this path a few years back was how I neglected myself. I was always doing shit for others, always sacrificing my time. And I realized I was fooling myself that I was doing all these good deeds, but I didn't realize the person that I wasn't giving the attention to was myself. And that's what this path teaches you. It starts with self. I can't be no good to anything or anybody, including my immediate family and my children, if my shit ain't in order and it's not right, right? Where other paths preach this save the world movement, right? A lot of these religions and spiritual systems about saving the world, kumbaya, let's hold hands and everything's going to be beautiful. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. So it always starts with self.
World, learn how to save ourselves. You got to save yourself before you can do anything. And then, but see, I think what happens is a lot of people look for community. They look for belonging.
That's okay.
And that's why the shadow work is important, because why do you need that longing? Why do you want that acceptance? Why, and we all want, it's a human thing in us, but if we're trying to evolve spiritually and we're trying to get to the next level, this is the path where eventually you don't look for that acceptance. You just do want to fuck do.
Right. Now speaking on the community thing, it's okay that we commune. It's okay, not in a conformist level, like you say, where everything is under that restrictive format of rules and regulations. But it's okay for us to commune and gather so we can dialogue, fellowship, grow, right? We are an isolated path. Let's just be for real with that. It's a lonely, isolated path. It's funny because a lot of people who first take the initiative to come on this path, they always describe in that first year or so, at some point they hit this bump where they feel extreme isolation and loneliness. And I tell them, I say, look, that's not a bad thing. That's confirmation that you're changing. You're starting to see. And then I say, well, let me ask you a question. I said that your social circles are starting to change drastically. You're starting to see a change in your behaviors, your habits. And they go, yeah, you're right. I say, that's what's creating the isolation, because this is working on the inside and it's working its way out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So this is why that whole, I want to be part of the clique and the Mickey Mouse Club, you're going to find the more you grow on this path, you literally vomit if you try to be a part of that, because it gets you sick to your stomach. Like you feel so weak and pathetic. Like you say, how can people fall for that shit or want to be a part of that? Because that shows internally your spirit is evolving, it's growing, and it's shifting away from that. And in that release and that separation, feelings of isolation, loneliness, separation do come to the surface. But I say that if anybody's going through that, it is a very normal thing. It's part of this path. Don't worry about it to the point, I'm not saying be observant of it, but don't worry about it as if it's a problem, because it's not a problem.
I love I can't stand a lot of people. Like I'll go out a little bit, but then, I'm like, fuck, these people are dumb.
Right. I want to be around it. Thank you. That's my point. Yeah.
Be around family. Like, I learned one thing to appreciate. My family's a good family. I'm lucky to have, had through our shit, but I have a decent loving family. My energy goes back to family. And that's where my people are.
And I'm gonna tell you, with family, this path has helped me establish a better relationship with my family. Okay, because it's shown me how to establish the parameters. It's given me the knowledge how to deal with certain individuals. Like I have 3 sisters. I know how to deal with each one of them. I have different level of relationship and connection with them. So it's helped me set my boundaries and parameters in accordance with what works for me. Same thing at the time, like before coming on this path, same thing with the relationship with my parents, same thing. It opens your psyche up to a better awareness, right? So that's the beauty of a lot of things that happen on this path that people don't talk about. And you bring up family. If you're fortunate like you, myself, and others out there, it's a blessing a personal blessing when you can have that good family relationship. And I tell you this, I'm big because I was the only boy. Go ahead.
You start to change roles. Like I have more respect now, and people want my input. They want my decision making. Like moving up in the level of the family where I help out. I do so much. I am more responsible. They trust me, and that's huge.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It helps you. It's improved your understanding and how you relate to your family. See, we got to look at this in its totality. That's why I was saying earlier, it's not worth it. Now, I'm fortunate because even though younger, and it was more so my mother's influence, that we grew up in that Catholic influence as children, which faded away as we got older. But I can tell you this, one thing I've been fortunate is, we're not strict. They didn't, my sisters aren't religious. They're very open-minded. So it makes it a little bit easier, don't get me wrong. But the thing we have to understand, that's why I was saying earlier, when you understand those parameters and boundaries of how to communicate, just, there's certain things you can talk about, but I try to realize when I'm with family, it's with family. I don't need to bring in all the time my personal and spiritual life. It's not necessary. So we haven't learned how. That's part of balancing your life. That's actually part of shadow work, by the way. We haven't figured out, if you're getting together to have a get-together, a dinner, or a gathering with your family, keep it a fucking get-together and a dinner. If you're getting together for the holidays, keep it. You don't need to show up, oh, here I am, the big, bad, dark occultist. Let me start talking about Lucifer. No, go there, have a holiday meal, and then just enjoy time with your fucking family and leave it at that. That's it. Yeah. See, we have to learn to simplify things on this path. Stop making shit more complicated than it needs to be. You're not obligated to save your parents, your sisters, your brothers, and the whole fucking world. Focus that shit on yourself.
The energy that you do work, it actually goes to your family anyways with them. Like it's affecting them anyways. Like there's not, and that's the thing, is like, even if my family's not really Christian anymore because they've seen things and they experienced that some things are not true here. Okay. Correct. But they won't come to me and ask me any questions. And even if they did, I won't think I would tell them. No, I don't think they're ready, and I don't think they're there yet. And if anybody wants information from me, they're gonna have to prove to me that they're ready for me to tell them certain things, because
that's what exactly. Right. Yeah. That's what I meant earlier when I said you have to be selective in who you have conversation with. Right. When you sense that there's an awareness there and your intuition tells you, okay, this is the moment I can talk to this person about that. That's when you engage. That's it. It's that simple. But when you're already feeling strife and angst and conflict, you're feeling all those things, that's your intuition telling you, nah, this ain't the moment. Don't do it.
And if you're wanting to battle, that's something that's something more deeper, because you don't have to prove yourself. If you're trying to prove yourself, there's obviously some healing that needs to be done, because this isn't,
No, but like you said earlier, like we've been saying, but we've said it multiple times, you prove yourself by setting your example. It's that simple. It's that simple. But anyway, I don't know if you had any other questions you want to get to. I want to make sure you got to the rest of your questions, and I know you probably wanted to go to the chat too.
Yeah, let's go to the chat, and then we can wrap it up. It's been an hour and 15.
Oh, no, we're good. I just wanted to make sure, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure you were able to get to the stuff you wanted to get to too. That's all.
Oh, well, we basically covered everything.
Okay, cool. No, that's cool.
Yeah, we basically had, that was a really, really good talk. Yeah, okay, well, I guess some people, we could talk about reaching apotheosis,
Okay.
Let's see how you put it.
All right. So the general insight and understanding on apotheosis is self-mastery, self-deification, right? In simplistic terms. Now, there's a lot more elements connected to that. That's just making it sound simple. Which is a Greek term. We also need to understand the etymology and the origin. It's a Greek term that actually goes back to Hermeticism. It's been incorporated in the occult, the left-hand path. But really, it's a good description in general to kind of describe what our goal is and what we're trying to obtain. If we had to use, if somebody would ask me and go, what's a basic description? Because, really you can't really limit and describe what we are on this path, because really there is no description for it. Because but some people need you to do that for them because they want to put you inside a box. Because once they can identify you and once they can classify you, they feel comfortable. So if I go to somebody and they go, I'm Buddhist. Okay, I know what a Buddhist is. Oh, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian. They go, okay, I can compartmentalize that and put it in a box. I know what that is. But if you turn to somebody and go, well, I'm spiritual. Well, what does that mean? You believe in God, right? It's the first question that comes out of their mouth. Well, apotheosis to me describes in essence what we do. It's the path of self-mastery, self-deification. So our path is designed around those concepts. Everything we're doing is for the sole purpose of mastering ourselves and becoming the best that we can be, to remanifest, or Kepler, as they say in the Hermetic studies, or the ancient Egyptian Heka studies. We're trying to remanifest ourselves, right? And become what we truly are destined and capable to become. But in that apotheosis process, there's intense shadow work, which must start there. I don't care what anybody tells you. Yes, you can come on this path, start fucking around with doing all dark sorcery and magic if you want. You can do whatever you want. It's your choice. But I'm telling you, people always say to me, what's the best place to start? And step one in apotheosis is really doing real shadow work. I'm not talking about all this bullshit that's out there. And there's a process to shadow work. There's the identification process. Then after I show people how you can use the 7 operations of alchemy to do shadow work, literally. And if you take it through that process, and it starts obviously with calcination, right? What causes calcination in your life? And it's everyday problems, personal problems, money problems, emotional, mental, spiritual blockages, right? That's the identification process in Hermetic alchemy, right? And then if you take it through all 7 of those steps, you must do that to all aspects of yourself that must be addressed. That's the first step of apotheosis, right? Once the person has unlocked the shadow self and has a good understanding of that, then they can start to design ritual work based on what they uncovered in their shadow work. Because if you do shadow work right, you'll never ask the question, what should I be doing next? Because your shadow work will uncover where you are at in your life, what's affecting you, and what needs to be worked on. So now I can say, oh, I got some mental or emotional blockages. I could work with Sekhmet to handle that. I could work with an aspect of Lilith. I could work with an aspect of Kali, etc. So now you're designing work for yourself, apotheosis, self-mastery, rather than, oh, I'm just going to go fuck around with this. Or I'm just going to jump into that because I like it. Or I'm just going to do this. No, now you have more of a focal point. You have more of a direct intent. And now you're creating your own work that's designed on your own personal needs. You're not just randomly doing shit. And I'm not saying, because I know people out there might go, well, I'm not saying you don't get some results here and there, but I guarantee you over a long period of time, long term, I guarantee you're not. Okay?
Yeah.
So apotheosis is in my experience, there's different perspectives on it, but my perspective on it, it is a multi-step process. It starts with shadow work. It involves being consistent. I can't stress the importance of consistency, like I was saying earlier. Don't expect results if you're not going to put the time, effort, energy, and work into doing this. It's just like anything else in life. I'm just going to be honest. That applies across the board to life in general. If you're an athlete, if you're not consistent in working on your craft and practicing, you're not going to be a good athlete, okay? And if you want to be an armchair magician and you just want to sit in your recliner and read books and play magician, it's not going to work for you. So apotheosis is a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong study of self and self's relationship to others and the universe, nature, creation, all of those things. The micro and the macrocosm, as people talk about, that's a part of apotheosis. To understand your relationship to everything, to existence in general, is the best way I can describe. And that's opening a wide door.
Well, life is basically relationships. It's relationship, everything. And when we get problems in our life, it's because we don't know how to have relationships with ourselves, with things, with places, with ideas, whatever it is. And the most successful people on this earth They are dedicated. They are willing to do the things that the other 90% of us can't do, and just in magic, if you want to have these great things, you're not going to be able to do a spell and get $1 million. Like, come on. You're
Listen.
going to have to put in some fucking goddamn, it's not impossible. If that's your true intention, if you want to be a filthy rich person, yes, I agree, magic will help because it will teach you how to get there, but obviously you're going to have to put in the work. It's all what you're wanting.
Let me touch on that. Let me touch on that real quick with money.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of mistake people do is they come on this path again with disillusions. They want to do money magic, love spells, and all this other type of shit, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Okay. But here's the thing. Remember, when you're working with these spirits, they're looking for a certain level of knowledge and intelligence. What do I mean by that? These spirits are not looking for people to worship them because they look at that as a sign of weakness. And then you can be devoured and overcome of your lack of understanding. That's what causes it. You'll find the ones that want to walk side by side with these spirits, these gods, these goddesses, whatever, archetypes, whatever you want to call them. When you walk side by side with them and try to embody and become what they represent, you'll find out you have a whole different approach. For an example, I always tell people I don't really do, maybe earlier back in the day, but at the present moment, I don't really do any money magic rituals. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you're in your work, when you approach the spirit based on, when it comes to, let's say, materialistic needs, when you approach the spirit with consistency and flow of money, where, like you said, it's ridiculous. Oh, I'm going to do a ritual for $1 million. I'm going to tell you 99.9% of the time, that's not going to work. Like you said, I leave that 0.1% there just because anything is possible, as they say, right? But I'm going to tell you, reality is, if you approach and work with the spirit based on your needs and not your wants, you will find out that doors open up tremendously. And I've always worked with the spirits in as far as finances and wealth is concerned. Give me what I need. And what that does is it's opened up greater doors and opportunities. And then you can exceed way past just the minimum when it comes to finances. And then you start to see, not in a spooky way that you're just sitting there and things is happening, but doors start to open. And you start to see money starts to come. There's opportunities there to seize. And you're able to build on that success. That's the difference of somebody who has a non-reality-based, grounded approach, as opposed to somebody who understands the spirit world and how this really works. Because if it were that easy, then we wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation right now. We'd all be getting the winning lotto numbers. We'd all be doing a candle magic spell and winning $1 million.
There are times. There are times where money will just appear. Somebody will give you money or something like that. Just if there are before when I was hurting for money or something like that, and I did a ritual. Yeah, I got something happened, but It wasn't gonna. Time it's like, okay, you got this money, invest it, do something with it, create another opportunity. They're teaching you how to, you can draw money in, but if you don't understand how it works,
that
you got to create the momentum to
And it's funny you bring that up, because the gold aspect of Santa Muerte, which is one of my matriarchal spirits that has opened tremendous amount of doors for me in financial areas. One lesson she will teach you is what you just said. If you don't know how the flow of that money works, I've watched people do ritualistic work with the gold aspect of the Holy Death, and they get results tremendously out the gate. But then what they do is they become reckless with that money. And as they become reckless, as quick as those doors open, they start to see crazy shit, problems shut down and issues arise in their life because of what you just said. They don't know how the current, the energy, and the flow of that money works. So what I mean is they became reckless because they forgot to realize the doors were open because you might have had a need. You might have been in a situation or a crisis. And then maybe you handled that crisis, and instead of being wise and now distributed and invested or put that money in places of need, you just became reckless and pissed it away on stupidity. And then your problems can become worse than they were before.
It's like, okay, it's okay. Well, this spirit can help me out again. And you start to abuse. And I think, that's another way of getting your life fucked up, is if you start abusing situations like that, asking the spirits for doing stuff like that, you're gonna have to pay up somehow. It's like selling drugs. It comes fast, but a lot of these drug dealers end up in jail. They get sloppy. They don't respect money. They don't respect it. They lose it, and their life gets. So it's teaching you how to be a business person with money, how to keep it.
Right. No, good points. Definitely. But yeah, I know we were talking about apotheosis, but yeah, in essence, I mean, we could be sitting here talking about it all night, but that basically, in my opinion and experience, in my understanding of it, that's my approach to it. It involves layers. There's different aspects to it, but if you look at it in that regards, and then you design your own personal plan and that's how you start laying out your own path to self-mastery, I guarantee you'll get results. But it must start with shadow work. I don't care what anybody says. It has to start there.
Yeah, that was really well said. And I hope everybody understood that. Let's see. Okay, so Young Finest asks, are these deities, demons, angels, etc. real, or are they just aspects of our consciousness?
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Maybe that person came on late. We were talking about that earlier. It's a combination of both. Because when we talk, first of all, when we say demons, gods, goddesses, first of all, we have to understand the origin of the word. People only understand the modern day breakdown of that word that comes from religion, D-E-M-O-N. That it came from the original Greek word D-A-E-M-O-N. We have something called on this path personal daemon, which goes back to ancient Egyptian Hermeticism, which represented the genius self, the higher self. It comes back when you go into those Hermetic studies. That word got corrupted, and later down the road, like when the church fathers and the translators of the Bible, that got grafted into the Bible and warped, where now a demon became this terrifying thing that we know in a lot of these horror movies and religious concepts and theology. So we must understand that. It comes from the word daemon, which just represents the higher self, the intelligent self, right? That's part of apotheosis too, because we are trying to unlock our higher self. Because what's the higher self? What am I talking about? We all have that inner voice that sometimes speaks to us and says, don't go to that place. That's not a safe place to go. Or don't do this. That's your higher self. And in Hermeticism, they believed that was the individual who was tapped into communication with spirit and deity, right? So when we sit there and we talk about demons, gods, and goddesses, we need to understand that concept first. But what was the other part of the question? I know I got sidetracked with that. What was
asking if they were real?
Yes. So I said it's a combination of both, because based on your experiences, and maybe you came on later because we did talk about this, it starts with the first principle when we were talking about the 7 Hermetic principles. All is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. You access that, yes, the Kabbalion. You access that based on your memories, your experiences, and it all starts in the mind. There are external experiences that manifest from that are personal and real to you. So that's why I say it's a combination of both. Yes, it is real. It is literal, but it all is going to vary from individual to individual based on their experiences, what they've opened themselves up to, and based on where they are at in their spiritual journey. Because there's some people who are just straight up religious and they just have a very external approach to everything. Everything is external. So that person may not be in alignment or in accordance to somebody who may be coming from a more esoterical or spiritual understanding. So when we ask a question like that, we have to factor in, where is the question coming from? And the person that's asking the question, where are you at in your understanding of what demons? Because if I sit here and go on a tangent, about what it is on a higher esoterical level, but you may be asking that question from a more, I'm just saying, I'm not saying you are, but you may be asking that question from a more religious perspective, right? So it's a combination of both, and a lot of it depends on where that individual is in their understanding, in their experience in their spiritual journey. Okay, hopefully that helped.
They're just talking about the incarnation and aspects of consciousness. Yeah. It's weird because it's where your mind goes to. Like, when you're focused on. I had this one guy try to like, oh, please, I just want to have experience. I want prove I'm trying to summon a demon and nothing's happening. I'm like, dude, like, what the like,
that was his first mistake.
Okay, you're not that special. That takes skill.
But let me say this though. Let me tell you where that is the worst approach you can take, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, that's the problem with a lot of people when it comes to ritual, not just on this path. People in paths of spirituality, even in religion. If you think every connection and communication with spirit is some type of visual and vision, then you have no idea what you're doing. The spirit communicates to you on a multitude of levels, clear thoughts, inner voice, through sound, sense, touch, all of those things. You must have all those senses open when you're connecting with spirit to get communication. Because if you're just looking for, like you described that person, right out the gate, nothing's going to happen. I can tell you that right now because of the approach. It's not going to work.
No.
Doesn't work. It's foolishness.
Develop your astral senses. You have to learn the basics of energy working. That's very, and some people, they don't understand that. You need to go out in nature and feel a tree, feel the energy off of, feel water, feel fire, understand what energy feels like. That way you can receive energy from the spirits.
Correct. Yes. So, yeah. And again, a lot of that's going to come to, as we were just saying a minute ago, everybody, we have to understand this because this path is so diverse and it covers so many areas of information. We have to understand everybody is at a different point in evolution in their spiritual journey. Some people don't take that into consideration, one, when they're reading stuff, one, when they're asking questions, because if a statement is made, you can make a statement, I can make a statement of somebody else. We could have 8, 9 people in that room or in the chat listening, and I guarantee you could have 8 or 9 different perspectives on that topic or concept or whatever we're talking about. Why is that? It's because people are going to base their truth and their reality on their perspective and their experiences and where they are at in their spiritual journey. We have to take that into consideration because there's not, to a lot of the things that we are addressing tonight, there's not one particular answer. And sometimes people, that's where they make the mistake. They think there's just one straight answer across the board and that's it. That's part of being programmed. See, that's what those lesser systems like religion did to us on a conscious and an unconscious level. That's what upbringing did. That's what society indoctrination did, because we think that if it was that simple, that's what they utilized, that tactic, to the things we were addressing earlier, being in that mindset, being controlled. So we have to be very, when I say liberated mentally, we have to understand there's going to be different varying perspectives. Now, again, when you go into the Hermetic principles, it talks about the doctrine of vibration, right? Which deals with perspective and perception, right? Because the word perspective is connected to the word perception. What does perception mean? It means the way somebody perceives something. So let me give you an example. We've done this. Do this. You could do this test with anybody. Put an object in the center of a room with a group of people and stand in a circle and have each go around the room and have each person describe something they see about the object. I guarantee you're going to have somebody that sees something that somebody else doesn't, and vice versa. That's to show you it's the same thing when we're talking about truth and reality. Truth and reality is based on perception, okay? We must understand that. There's no getting away from that. You are going to perceive your truth based on your understanding of that perception. So if I say a statement like we're talking about topics tonight, let's just say we're talking about connecting with spirit through ritual or something like that. And let's just say a bona fide, sanctified, saved Christian comes in the room. They're not going to be able to relate or connect because their concept is there's some spooky old man God sitting in the sky judging all of our actions. It's just that mythological, ridiculous approach. So they're dealing with faith and belief and mythology. So they're not going to be able to connect with what we're talking about. It's going to sound absurd and crazy to them. And then we're going to look like the biggest monsters in their eyes because where they are at in their spiritual journey. That we must understand that when we are dialoguing, having conversation, building, asking questions, because we're going to get a multitude of perspectives. Very important to understand. And I don't know why we went there because I know something brought it up, but anyway.
Good teacher is when you can understand that people are on different levels. You can't expect everybody to be on the same level as you. I mean, the path of the it's a craft, and it's in the for reasons. We can't expect everybody to be spiritually evolved. Like we're still learning. I'm still I feel like I don't know nothing, but I'm not going to beat myself up.
But I love that term you use, a craft, right? You can apply that to, they'll say in masonry, as a mason, in spiritual masonry, not literal masonry, they'll say perfect your craft. An athlete will say, I'm working on my craft, right? A magician will say, I'm working on my craft. You're right. It is a craft. And in order it to be a refined and skilled craft, you must work on it. Okay. And I love that term. And that's a term I've used in the past. It is a craft. And I tell people if it's a craft, right, they call magic. It's a craft. So if it is, and I want to say, I don't want to limit the left-hand path in occult to magic because sometimes that tends to be done and that's wrong. Magic is a very key component and one of the key ingredients to the left-hand path in the occult. But sometimes people maybe who are not educated to the occult in the left-hand path, they think, oh, you guys are just black magic. You walk around wearing black robes. And no, that's not what this, it's not what this shit is. Look, how I see you, how you are. This, I'm just a regular person. I don't walk around. And some people think, oh, everybody on the left-hand path, they got to be all gothic and dark. No, I walk around. I'm an average Joe that just fits in. You wouldn't even know if you didn't ask, right? There's another myth that, oh, everybody that's on the black, they look very druidy and gothic and dark. No. You're going to find real people that are doing work on this bed. They just look like, if you see me out and about, I'm just a regular dude wearing a pair of shorts, t-shirt, and that's it. I might have a pendant on, a little something, but I'm not walking around. There's some people that are so ridiculous with it. They want to wear big-ass fucking pentagrams like Flavor Flav, and they got to let everybody know that I'm so dark and gloom. And they do it in those Egyptian conscious paths. They want to walk around with big-ass ankhs, and I got to wear 50 beads around my neck because I want to show everybody how spiritual I am. You're going to find that those are all stereotypes on this path. You probably may not even know. I found out, for an example, being in the Rosicrucian order, which is more of an esoterical order. It's not a left-hand path order. It's an Egyptian esoteric order. I was so surprised to find out who were part of those higher orders because these just like ordinary people you see in the supermarket. And I find out people who are really rooted in some serious knowledge, they don't feel the need to always have to show everybody what they know. And I learned that from elders years ago. Because there's circles I walk in, I could be sitting in a group of people and they have no idea. I don't feel the need to tell everybody who I am and what I know. That shit is irrelevant to me.
Get to the point where you don't want people to know certain things. Like it's not business. It's like, because people will attack. They attack what you don't know. You got to be smart, and you gotta be part of of society and fit in, and especially the more you know, the more you don't want to know.
Right, but you fit in on your terms. That's the difference. You fit in on your terms.
Yeah.
And you do that by setting your parameters, your boundaries based on your needs and what you got going on in your life. You'll find out. See, and that's why people don't address. This is what I was talking about earlier. You must address your mundane everyday life. You cannot pretend it doesn't exist. That's where people go Spookyville, like I was saying earlier. Everything is subjective and spiritual. They act like, oh, I don't need to worry about my everyday life. You know, doesn't work. Trust me, you'll fail.
Pop out for like
Yeah,
trying to actually do anything. That's just
big time.
an
Big
escape
time.
from being lazy.
That's all it is.
Get a fucking job. Get out there.
Right. Well, it's like I get this all the time. I'll get female clients that'll come to me about relationship problems. And I say, let me say what I'm about to say, because sometimes it's just about common sense. And unfortunately, I've always said common sense is either something you have. You can't teach somebody common sense. They either have it or they don't. Like they'll come to me with relation, oh, my man is this and that. He's useless, or he's this, he doesn't do anything, this or that. I say, okay, I got you. That's fucked up. But let me ask you a few questions. Explain to me what's going on. Oh, I go to work every day and then I come home and he's sitting on the couch and he's playing video games. Uh-huh. And then what do you do about it? Oh, I tell it to him and he tells me he hasn't found the right job. I said, so what responsibility do you take in this situation? Huh? I said, listen, that person every day because you tolerate the shit. Okay?
Yep.
If you were a grown ass man, your response should simply be, you didn't find a job because you didn't find the one you like. Well, if you're at a point, you take whatever the fuck you can get till you find what you like. See, again, it goes back to people taking responsibility for the choices and the decisions they make. You allowed that person in your house. You saw it going downhill. You continued to let it spiral and you didn't say anything. And now it's out of control. And now you got a bigger problem because it's going to be hard to get that person to leave. It's going to be hard to get that person to do the right thing. I say all that to say sometimes situations and things going on in our life is just simple, basic, common fucking sense. And it boils down to making simple decisions and wise choices. But everybody wants to turn it into something deep and spiritual. Oh, somebody's out to get me. Somebody's doing work on me. This person's doing me wrong. And I don't ever hear in that conversation the person taking some level of accountability or responsibility. It takes, so I was saying, it takes two to tangle. This didn't just happen by itself. No, but the whole universe isn't out to get you. You understand? Yeah. Take some responsibility for your choices. You
and
know,
make the change. You got to make the changes. You got to make the changes.
You got to make the changes. I agree.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this.
What happened? We lost you. No, what happened? She got booted out the room. Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
No, you're back. You're back.
I'm like, I'm going to wrap this. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That was awesome talk.
Yep.
Well, let's see. Hold on. The secret word are magic within itself. The way one perceives the true intent, the way they speak it out.
Yep, that's true. I'm going to scroll up because I have it here on my phone. I'm going to see if there's anything we missed at the top.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I see, I'm going to go to the very top. I see there was one earlier. I don't know if I'm saying the name right. I don't want to mess it up. Grigor Adami, the temple said, has some very defined ideas about the eon. They do. Yes, and the dogma does become restrictive. I guess that's earlier when we were talking about temple said. I see something else in here. This was directed to me earlier. Ifa and Paulo entail very detailed commitments. Have you transgressed those commitments? That kind of, let me just be honest, the way the question is worded is a little bit religious, but the answer to that, no, I haven't transgressed those commitments. I connect with that now, as we were talking about early, in my own non-traditional way. So I still have my own personal commitments to it, not the traditional restrictive commitments that the tradition says you have to do. Contrary to belief, there will be a difference of opinion in that from a traditionalist who's on that path. But no, I have my own personal connection with it that doesn't go back to the traditional aspect of it. What else here? I'm trying to run through these quick if you don't mind.
Yep.
Okay, no, just This was a comment earlier from AKA Morningstar. So true ether is connected to everything and all things, even within our atmosphere and our surroundings. Well, in some schools of thought, and the Rosicrucian order teaches this, we are etheric or Etherean beings or vital life course beings. All of us are energy beings, right? And let me give a little more detailed explanation of that, not to sound new agey, but we all went from a energy state into a liquid state into a solid state. What am I talking about? Even these spirits that we're talking about, these gods and goddesses, they manifest as energy first. This is why people always describe orbs in their rituals. I see these orbs, or if you've ever filmed it, you see these. Even if you've seen some of the videos, the little clips at the end of rituals we do, you could see all the orbs floating around, because these are etheric or energy ether beings, right? What do I mean by that? We all went from that state of ether or energy, right, into a water being, because remember, you lived and swam around in the womb of your mother for 9 months in water, right? So you are a water being part of you. You swam in water, and then you took on a solid form when you came out of the womb of your mother, but you came from that ether or vital life force state. So we're all beings of light and energy when you really break it down into its essence. And that even includes, in the paradigm of religion, Lucifer, the light bearer. You can't destroy energy. And I keep telling religious people, you can't destroy the devil. Your doctrine is, if you took the devil out of Christianity, there would be no purpose for the religion. You need the devil for your religion to exist. There's no battle, there's no war to fight. Yep. So everything does tie back to that energy. That was a good comment. I'll skip some if it's not relevant. That's just some comments there.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other questions. I just see there's some comments, some good comments. Appreciate the comments. That was a comment. This is a good comment I do want to read earlier from AKA Morningstar. When we were talking about working with spirit, etc., just carry a conversation to the spirits as you would a person in the room when you are invoking rituals. I do that. I use that approach. And I'm glad you said that. Some people, again, get spooky with that, especially when I'm doing ancestral work. I have a conversation with my mother like me and Eldora are right now. People have this fucked up approach. I'm glad you said that, Morningstar. But I'll tell you what, something you said in the very beginning, I don't really plan rituals out. I kind of just go with the flow. Mm-hmm. I use the term freestyle. Like, even when we do our monthly rituals here, we'll pick something to work with. And anybody that knows me will tell you, we don't know what we're going to do until the very moment leading up to the ritual, literally. That's not even an exaggeration. And sometimes we get inspired with pulling something from here, something from there, and then just putting our own jigsaw puzzle together. Like, we'll pull from different sources and then create our own thing. And I can tell you, literally, when you are connected to spirit and communicating with spirit, it comes naturally. You don't have to sit there. I'm not saying everybody, look, I want to make it clear. When you come out on this path, do what you need to do to get to where you need to be. So I want to make that clear. If you got to plan things more, write things out, I'm not telling you don't do that. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying, as you become more experienced later down the road, you're going to find out you just flow with it in the moment. You don't really have to do all that stuff anymore. Yeah. But that was a good comment.
You kind of, let's, like with me, I just get, if I'm planning to do a ritual for a bunch of people, I don't know what the hell I'm doing till the night before. And then all of a sudden, all of these ideas, I'm shown what to do, where to go, everything just, and then even the moon, I don't even check the moon cycle, and it's always on a moon cycle that's appropriate for that ritual. So when it's aligned and you just go with the flow and let things just run its course, because if you overcomplicate things,
you're going
to overcomplicate them.
But see, everything you just said is confirmation that the spirit, that's the results. You just described all the results. And this is what I meant when I said earlier, when you're looking for the results, stop always thinking it's going to be a vision of some being in a long gown robe. Ooh, you were my chosen son. You know, unfortunately, some people look for that. They think if they don't have this vision of some spirit or deity or God, that they're not getting results. Yeah. What you just described was a many levels and layers of results. Yeah. The reason why that happens, like you say, you go in the night before and then things just seem to naturally fall into sync because you put your intent out there, and then the spirit reciprocated that back by giving you the clear guidance, you all of a sudden you're like, bam, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it all starts to click. That's confirmation that you're getting the results. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And if you approach it with that, I guarantee you'll be successful. All right. Let me see. The comments, I'm not going to read all of them, but I appreciate it. Some good comments. I'm just looking for questions because I'm sure we can do another. We don't have to get everything crammed in one night. Let me see. All right, here's one here. This was also by AK Morningstar. Enhance one's pineal gland with nutrition such as spirulina, apple cider, vinegar beets. Good. This is good. Iodine, natural salt, chlorella, and turmeric. Right.
Stuff I've been drinking all week. I literally have been drinking that all week because I've been sick. And like, okay, so I told you I'm working with Nephthys, and I'm getting ideas of what to offer her. I don't know. And I get almond milk, turmeric, saffron. She wants me to offer her this stuff. And then I'm like, this sounds familiar. And this was some kind of thing that they used to do back in the day. Like, I'm like, and it's healthy for you, know?
Right.
But I don't even know what that question was.
Well, no, to enhance one's, it was a comment about enhancing one's pineal. Because when the pineal gland is calcified, one is disconnected from, quote unquote, the spiritual world. One cannot lift the veil or illusion that is creating the blockage to connect with spirit. And again, what causes that calcification of the pineal gland is very important to understand. All the things we've been talking about tonight. When you are overwhelmed and devoured by life's problems and you have no control over your personal chaos, that's what causes the calcification. One, there is a health aspect to it, bad food, lack of exercise and diet. That definitely is a root cause, no doubt. Can't get around that. Bad information, being programmed and indoctrinated with spiritual faith and belief systems that are ridiculous. That causes calcification. Mental and emotional blockages, that health problems. There's components to that. So anything you can do to apply and enhance the decalcification process of the pineal, such as that's a literal dietary approach. That's productive. All right.
Especially when you're working with when you're working with the darker forces, exercise. If you don't exercise, like when I was working with Ariman, his energy was so intense. I had to go and work out and you have to push that energy out. Just sitting at home invoking dark energies, if you don't do something with that,
it can linger around and fuck you up. I mean, literally, it'll linger around and it'll destroy you because if you don't know what to do with it. I agree. This is a good question here, Bobby Bree. What is the difference between, this was from Young Finest, what is the difference between other spiritual systems and the left-hand path? A lot. But to simplify the answer to that question, it's a non-conformist, non-traditional path. There's no boundaries. There's no barriers. What we do, we have the liberty and freedom to deal with everything from a non-traditional approach without being judged according to those other paths, because most of those other paths have a criteria and a guideline and a construct you must follow if you want to consider yourself a loyal devotee of those systems. That's the biggest difference. So there's no boundaries here. You don't have no restrictions. You are free to explore as you see fit and learn and experience what it is you feel you need to experience so you can grow. That is the biggest difference of what we do and what more right-hand path philosophies do. That's the simple answer to that. Okay.
You learn what works for you. And, I know with my experience, I've noticed crazy synchronicities that every year I start working with where I left off with that pantheon. I'll continue the next, like last year, this month, I was working with Set. Not heavily, but now all of a sudden I'm working and I know this because I was looking at my Facebook and my old memories. I'm like, holy shit. Like every spirit that I work with, it's not like I just work with them one time. You're going to work with them for the rest of your life. And every time you work with them, you start to get more, because you build up more skills to more knowledge. You're not people who just start working with spirits, you're not going to get the same knowledge you're going to get from 10 years from now when you start working
Oh
with.
no,
That's
no,
the beauty.
that's correct. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And then I see another one here. This was earlier from Grigor Adami. Apotheosis. There is no God where I'm at. Yes, there is no God in the sense that how they describe it in religion. No, when we use the term God or goddess, and let me just explain what that means to me. And other people might have different perspectives on it. It just means somebody who is responsible and in control. That's it. It's just somebody who takes responsibility for their actions, which any normal human being should do that anyway. But unfortunately, we don't. When we say God, or goddess, we definitely don't mean in the terms of monotheistic religion, faith, and belief, right? Because people hear that word that maybe are not on this path and they go, oh my God, that's blasphemous. How can you say you're a God or goddess? Yes, to a religious person, that might be blasphemous.
I'm very blasphemous.
Right, me too. But when we say it, we don't want people on this path to think we mean it in that regards. Yeah. It just means somebody who has taken responsibility, control, and they are saying, I am the navigator of my spiritual path. That's what apotheosis is. I make the choices and the decisions.
The neta rule.
Right. I rule. That's all that means. It's that simple. All right. I think that pretty much, we talked about that. You addressed these ones at the end. I think, I don't know, unless I missed something. I think you got most of them for this session anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else. Did I miss it? Oh, wait. Okay. I think this one here. All right. So this was from Young Finest. I didn't see this one. How does one use astral travel for more gnosis and self-knowledge and knowledge of all things? And is it possible to have a breakthrough experience? All right. So, yeah, let's break that down. Astral travel, obviously, if one is able to obtain. Remember, astral travel is just the entrance or the doorway to many realms. I have to say that because some people, and I'm not saying Young Finest but I'm speaking in general. Some people believe that, I've connected with the astral realm and that's it. The astral realm is the doorway to many astral or spiritual realms, right? We talk about that in some of the Egyptian mystery teachings as you have entered the pylon. You've just entered the doorway or the gateway. You've just walked through. It can cover a more gnosis or hidden knowledge because the only way one can truly understand the mysteries of life and death, which, by the way, is one of the main driving forces why we study spiritually, why we're trying to learn. Let's be real. A lot of us are here. That's why we were in religion and we didn't get those answers. A lot of people are very inquisitive about this concept of life and death, especially death, right? The left-hand path addresses and demystifies and teaches you what that death really is, the doorway to the abyss, right? It goes deeper than that, but just being basic and just getting straight to the point. A lot of us were in fear of that when we were ignorant. Religion kept us in fear. That's and right. We felt we just needed to behave and be good because if we did die and we didn't repent for our sins, we were going to be eternally damned and tortured, and we wouldn't go to this paradise with little fat kids in diapers floating around and sitting on clouds, and who the fuck knows what we were going to do when we get there, right?
What bugged me when I was young, as I would ask my mom, I'm like, but like, the murderers and rapists who asked Jesus to forgive them for their sins, they're going to be in heaven.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to go.
Well, the Catholics came up with some classic shit called purgatory. See, they came up with some real classic shit. No, see, what happens is people like that go to purgatory until they burn out all their sin, and then they get the transfer. Like if you're on a bus, you get the transfer, and then you can transfer to heaven. It's comical. It's so fucking stupid. But yes, astral travel could be one aspect to uncovering hidden gnosis, because for one to understand the spirit world, life and death, you must travel outside of three-dimensional things, person, place, and thing. The problem is people ask questions like who and what is the creator? Like religious people will ask this. People will ask stuff like what happens to me when I die? It's hard to explain that in a confinement of person, place, and thing. When you're dealing with three-dimensional things, you can only use three-dimensional things to explain it. So when one has the ability through astral travel to vibrate outside of three-dimensional things, they get their own personal hidden gnosis and understanding based on that experience. You can get the answers to those questions. You can get the answers to a lot of things maybe that have been mystifying you for years when you're able to do things through like that in your spiritual practices. So most definitely you can obtain some form of gnosis, self-knowledge, and having a breakthrough experience or somebody call as an aha moment, that happens a lot. But make sure you're not limiting what in your mind the definition is of a breakthrough experience. So a breakthrough experience could be, you might have read something or seen something or experienced something 8 years ago, and then you sit down tomorrow and you read something, and you go, oh shit, that's what that was, blah, 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 from 7, 8 years ago. You had a breakthrough moment. I like to call that DNA explosions, right? When things just start to click and you get that feeling within yourself, like it's all lining up, kind of like what Eldora was talking about earlier with her ritual work. That's a breakthrough moment, right? In some of the ancient Egyptian teachings, or even in the Temple of Set, when I was in the Temple of Set, they called that Khepera, right? Khepera is something you're constantly obtaining. It's not something you just can plan out and it happens. And in that constant process of attaining it, you have those breakthrough moments, right? So hopefully that helps that. I'm just trying to run through these quick. Yeah, well, that was kind of in line with what we were saying. I really go through too much of the comments. Yes, I've heard Bobby Hemmett say that. The dark side is the divine feminine. What I've learned in my experience, what I've learned that a lot of these female archetypes are much more intense. And I found its reverse on the spirit realm. That what we see, we got gender and masculinity and femininity all fucked up. See, when we look at it on the physical realm, we look at a woman and we identify feminine gender with that to a degree, because it's a little crazy nowadays, but that's a whole nother story. We look at a man and we identify in our minds what they have conformed us to understand what masculinity is, right? So here it's the man machoism, and I'm the man, I'm in control, and the woman is supposed to be submissive, right? We know, we learn that changes as we go through our studies. We see in the Hindu pantheon in ancient Egypt, the female is revered on a much higher level than the male, etc. When most people don't really know, polygyny and polygamy was practiced first by females. And that fucks a lot of people up when they hear that, because they don't do their research. Yeah. So a lot of these brothers that want to have practice polygamy, I say, well, what if your woman, if you had wanted 5 wives, what if your woman came to you and said she wanted 4 or 5 husbands? How would you feel? Huh? Because you're in that chauvinistic mind state. If you go back to the ancient Dravidians, females practiced polygamy before men did. That fucks a lot of people up because they don't know that. So, but on the spirit realm, you'll find working with, in the occult left-hand path, spirits like Lilith. The feminine is much more aggressive on the spiritual realm, much more intense than the masculine deities of spirits. That's fact. Trust me when I tell you. So I do agree with that comment. There is some element of truth to that. I'm not sure where that question's coming from. What is the boat of millions of years, really? I don't know if you're talking about the Menjet of Ra. I need to clarify. Maybe I'm not understanding. So I don't want to speculate and just go on a tangent about that. Now, all right, young fighter, when you talk about the sacred whore or prostitute, right? That sounds really morbid, right? When somebody hears that, it's not. That term is affiliated to certain aspects of Lilith, right? Because there's different levels to it. It represents a higher level of spirituality, number one. It represents somebody who is not constrained by their sexual energy. There's a sexual aspect to it. That's why they call it, there's a sexual, physical part, but there's a spiritual aspect. It also, the sacred whore, the sacred prostitute, is a person that takes on the consciousness or mindset of somebody who is not going to be restricted or confined or submit to any level of conformity. Because Lilith is also called the mother of abominations, because she has no qualms about speaking out against anything and being rebellious to anything she feels is bullshit. is the best way I could describe it. So that's why you hear these terms, and they're just terms to the sacred whore or the mother of abominations. It represents somebody who takes the opposite approach to the mainstream individual, right? So people hear that and they go, oh, that's not a positive term, because it doesn't mean what people think it means on the surface. I know some people, even in the occult, still have a problem with that term. Don't ask me why, but because they have that society definition when they hear prostitute.
Yeah.
So Matthias says, yeah, of course, yeah, I've heard of Panic. I actually did some radio shows on the old radio broadcast. We used to have a broadcast, Awaken Universal Minds. It's still archived now, I think, under Primordial Chaos. Yes. Did some shows with him back in 2000. He actually has it posted. He actually has the audio posted of it on his YouTube page. You can go pull it up. It was back in, I think, 2014, somewhere around there. We did a few shows together on that radio show. Yeah, so I do know him. I'm aware of him. A lot of people are. He's pretty popular on YouTube. I think that's it. I think we at the bottom. Okay. Vama Marga, the Tantric Hindu left hand boy, has strong Shakti goddess roots. Yes. Vama Marga, especially with Kali. I mean, that's a whole nother subject in itself, right? Does Kundalini ever go away? I don't know if it ever goes away once you connect and activate it, right? But one thing I do know with Kundalini energy, it's not always pleasant. I can tell you that, contrary to belief. Everybody always talks about how I obtained Kundalini. Could be some painful shit when you start to activate it, because it opens up a lot of energy centers and some that need work on, and you realized how damaged you are. But when activated and flowing correctly and you're working with it in accordance, yes, it can be very powerful. I don't know if it ever goes away because it's always there. Are there periods where it's not activated more times than others? That I would agree with. I don't think it ever goes away because it's always there to some form. You just may not be activating it, or we don't activate it to its full capacity, so it can create the illusion that it's not there. That's just like people say a term, which is bullshit. Your chakras are never closed. Don't believe anybody that tells you that. Can they be blocked or obstructed? Yes. There's some people that don't believe chakras aren't real. They don't exist. Now, I'm not going to get into this tonight. That's because they're not part of your body. That's the first fucking mistake. They're aligned with aspects of your body, like you see on the chart, where they connect with vital organs. But there's a, I don't want to get into that. That's opening a can of worms. But we could talk about that another time. But yes, I do agree. I wouldn't look at the perspective. It doesn't ever, I don't know if it goes away. I don't know if that's the right term. Is casual sex dangerous? Yes, if you use it recklessly, right? Because if you're not educated, you could be fucking around with somebody that got STDs, a sexual disease. That's basic, right?
And you attach yourself spiritually to that person. If you don't know how to cut your cords with them,
right.
Like I'm a type of woman. I don't sleep around. Like, this is my preference. Even though I exhibit a lot of sexual energy, I'm very choosy with who I sleep with. I ain't just gonna lie with anybody. I have to be on a spiritual connection with them. You know, maybe when I was younger it was different, you know, but now that I'm older and I understand how connected you are with someone when you sleep with them, you do create these bonds with them, and if they are more powerful than you and you don't know it, they will feed off of you. And
that's the key.
Yeah, you know, but
that's the key, because you have to understand, when you're swapping any form of DNA, whether that's saliva, sexual fluids, blood, any of those things, you are ingesting that person's DNA. Mm-hmm. Now, what can happen is, this is why I've said before, in relationships, we use a term as men and women, like we say a man who's done wrong by a woman that can just walk all over the man, take advantage of him. I'm not just talking about cheating on him on all levels. We say that man's pussy whipped. Or we say it to a woman who stays in an abusive relationship, the man's treating her like shit, and we say, man, I don't understand why that woman doesn't leave that relationship. Why she stay around in a bad relationship? Dude treats her like shit, does her wrong, but she stays. Well, a lot of it comes from what we're talking about. Because if your DNA is stronger, you can, like you said, with the feeding off and devouring, you can maintain control of that individual. And there's this attachment, or there could be this period where the person feels like they can't let that person go. So this is why you need to be very educated on who you swap DNA with.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you can become, that person can feed off your DNA
and
to
you
control
stay in
you.
that relationship until you're completely drained and broken. Shit like that can happen.
All right. So let's do this.
We're gonna answer one more question, and I got
Yeah. I was just I was just going to say cut it now because it's after 10. I know there was a couple more, but we don't have to answer everything in one night. Maybe we could schedule another one.
I'm gonna have Baniti back on if he will come back on, and
we'll set something up. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. And then maybe we need to get you on the flip side. You come on my channel, and maybe we could do something on there.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for participating, and I hope you really enjoyed this talk. I know I did, and I'm ready for bed because I got to work.
There you go. All right. I appreciate you guys. Infernal blessings to all, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Later.